All right, everybody, welcome back to the NASA Space Apps Collective Genius Summit. We are coming to the conclusion of our programming, beginning the fourth of 4 blocks over the last couple of days. We have a really exciting program ahead of us. Before we get into it, I want to take a moment to reflect on the awesome morning we had. Earlier today, we heard from international space agencies from the United States, Brazil, Bahrain, and South Africa, and had a workshop from NASA's RSET. Those who didn't join the workshop had an opportunity to connect more with one another in an orbiting idea session where they networked and shared ideas. I wasn't able to join that session myself, but I heard people talk about black holes, singularities, time travel, AI, cybersecurity, and more. In the RSET session, we learned a lot about how to engage with NASA's open source data, including using the Worldview app to manage, engage with, and manipulate that data for our own purposes. In this final block of programming, we have a panel from emerging space leaders who will share some of their journeys and goals to doing space science with NASA. Then you'll have the option to either attend a workshop, this time by NASA's Globe, who will be helping us learn to use the Global Observer app and engage with NASA open data sets, or you can join a connection session, our zero gravity chat, for those of you looking to network with other participants on your project, from your region, or any particular topic. With that, I want to invite Cynthia off mute to spotlight Varsha P from the Space Apps Collective cohort. Cynthia?
Thank you, Parker. As we continue highlighting members of our collective cohort, we're excited to introduce another incredible innovator who is blending AI, space technology, and earth science to tackle global challenges. Let's meet our next spotlight. Varsha P. For Varsha, being part of the collective is about growth, collaboration, and impact. She is so passionate about using AI-driven solutions to advance earth science and space technology. Through her involvement in NASA Space Apps, she has seen firsthand how technology and teamwork can drive real-world change. She's eager to apply what she learns here to future hackathons and community initiatives, using innovation to solve some of our biggest global challenges. Varsha's journey really reflects the power of collaboration and curiosity and pushing the boundaries of what's possible. It's really amazing to see how the members of the collective cohort are taking what they learn here and turning it into meaningful action. And with that, I'll pass it back to Parker.
Thanks so much, Cynthia. As we get into our programming, we want to make sure our participants have a chance to feel warmed up and energized with what we're doing. So we're doing one more Mentimeter engagement activity. What I'd love for folks to do is either click on the link in the chat or scan the QR code on your screen to join the Mentimeter. We'll use this to have an opportunity to understand who's in the room. The first question that we'll engage with on the Mentimeter is where you're joining us from today. In order to answer that question, you use the pin on image feature and drag your cursor and place it where on the map you're joining us from. Earlier today, we had folks from 5 continents, I believe. So I'm really hoping that we can maybe break the record and get to a 6th if some penguins join us from Antarctica. So where are you joining us from today? Again, you can click the link in the chat or scan the QR code in order to get access to the Mentimeter. Already have such a beautiful representation from folks around the globe, North and South America well represented, a number of folks from Europe and the African continent as well, as some folks joining us from India. Now we recognize fully that the time is not the same everywhere in the world. So for those of you joining early in the morning or late at night, we're so grateful for you making time to join us at the NASA Space Apps Collective Genius Summit. Our next question asks you to share some information about the career level you consider yourself to be at. Are you perhaps a K-12 student, a university or graduate student, or do you have entry, intermediate, or mid-level experience in your career? This has been one of the most exciting things to see throughout the summit is just the range of folks who are joining us, not only from around the world, but we have K-12 students from as early as 6th and 7th grade middle school to folks joining like Rob, who is almost as old as the sun. It's pretty old, Rob. Glad you're able to make it. The next question we're going to ask you to share. We want you to take some time to think. What is your dream job in Earth or space science? I once wanted to be an astronaut, but I'm not quite brilliant enough, frankly. PhD and everything, but I not made of the right stuff. I think a lot of folks on this call, though, are astronauts in training. I see a few folks in the chat here already saying they want to be astronauts. Researcher, innovator, IT, satellite system engineer, space scientists. Folks want to go into law and do aerospace. Creating tools for others as strategists. Having fun with tech and AI, which I love the idea of having fun with our science skills. Innovator, an engineer on the moon. Somebody, I don't know who it is, somebody says they already have it, their dream space science career. Regardless of your career aspirations, we recognize that you're bringing a lot of expertise here to the NASA Collective Genius Summit, and we're so grateful that you were able to join us. It's always so excited to learn about our collective community. And as you think about your dream career, we want to invite you to learn alongside us with these awesome panelists we have here today, who are going to be sharing some of how they are on their journey to achieve their dream space science career. Before we bring our panelists up, let's do a quick reminder of the tech we'll be using. Of course, in the chat, you can feel free to type a question or idea you have, specifically about a question you have about advancing your career. What's something you want to know about how to advance your career? You can also use the emojis or reactions to share quick, instant responses as our panel gets into their talks. And finally, you can use the Q&A feature to share questions for the speakers during their talk. At the conclusion of the panel, we'll have a period of open Q&A where we'll raise some of those questions that you share in the Q&A feature. Today, we have a panel with 4 emerging scientists contributing to NASA. They'll be sharing some of their journeys, the work that they do, and what it means to them to do science at NASA. Let's meet them. We're joined by Dr. Michole Washington, a postdoctoral researcher at NASA's SMD Community of Practice for Education, or SCOPE program at Arizona State University. Naia Butler-Craig is joining us. She's an aerospace engineering PhD student at the Georgia Institute of Technology and a NASA Pathways intern. Dr. Alina Kunitskaya is a NASA postdoctoral program fellow at NASA Ames Research Center in California. And Dr. Yoseline Angel is a postdoctoral researcher at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. Following our panel, we'll have a Q&A with these folks, as I mentioned. So please, as questions come up for our speakers, use the Q&A function to jot those down. And with that, I'd like to welcome our panelists to the stage. Salutations, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us. I'd love to have you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your work so our audience can get to know you a bit. Michole, would you like to start?
I'd love to. You already called me out. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Michole Washington. I'm coming to you from Phoenix, Arizona, out in the desert in the United States. Right now, I am a postdoc research scholar at ASU via the NASA project for, bear with me, it's a very long acronym, the Science Mission Directorate Community of Practice for Education, also known as SCOPE, where I'm doing research to understand what are all the ways that NASA is trying to connect more NASA scientists, other subject matter experts into the communities, because NASA being a government entity, everything that we have here about space, about the meteorites is free access for the public. So we're trying to make sure that it actually makes it to everyone as it should.
Thank you so much. We're so glad to have you here. Same question for Alina. Introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thanks for having me here. I'm in California right now at NASA Ames, and I came here from Canada. I have a background in chemical and biomedical engineering, and right now I work on engineering microbes to try and produce pharmaceuticals on demand in space, because one of the challenges when we go to the moon and Mars particularly is a lot of the pharmaceuticals will not be stable enough. So we need a way to produce them on site.
That's so interesting. I have so many more follow-up questions. Naia, can you introduce yourself next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Naia Butler-Craig. I'm currently getting my PhD in aerospace engineering at the Georgia Institute of Technology. I do apologize for any background noise. I have a fire alarm that needs a battery replaced and 2 cats and a dog. So you might hear some things, just as general housekeeping. But as far as who I am and what I do, my focus in my PhD is actually on space electric propulsion, so electric rockets. and I use lasers to essentially diagnose and optimize these devices. Outside of that, I've been a NASA Pathways intern for the last 8 years, I think, at NASA Glenn Research Center in the Space Systems Technology branch, where I've had the opportunity to work on a variety of projects, including but not limited to the Lunar Gateway, which is going to put a space station in lunar orbit using electric rockets. So one of my favorite projects and an exciting one. Very excited to be here.
We're excited to have you. Thanks so much. Yoseline, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Just want to say hi to all other folks around the world. So, marhaba and hola para todos. So, actually, 2 days ago, I was promoted as a research scientist here at Goddard. So I just want to let you know this news.
Congratulations.
Well, my background is on earth sciences and remote sensing. And this is what I do here. I participated in 2 different remote sensing missions. One of them dedicated to study our surface, our biosphere in our planet, and also our geology and minerals. The second one is already on board the International Space Station. And with this one, we are targeting as well different applications, including agriculture, measuring different variables to monitor our Earth and our Earth system. So happy to be here with all of you.
We're so happy to have you. Bienvenidos. See, I want to start to ask you all some questions, and I'm going to start inviting you to share some of what inspired you or what encouraged you to pursue a career in space science. Naia, would you like to start?
Sure, it's one of my favorite stories to tell.
Please.
One of my core memories was actually when I was taking Earth Space honors in middle school in the 8th grade, where we learned about the enigma of space. We learned about Earth too and its atmosphere, and all things just regarding space and our own planet. And I just remember this feeling just kind of deeply in my stomach of wonder of just like, wow, it's so vast, space is so big and it's so unknown. And it has to be a multitude of possibilities there. And from there, that has driven my passion for this industry, just because one, I feel like a kid in a candy store all the time because I've always been a very curious person, a very curious child, very science focused, loved engineering, but I didn't know how to marry all those things together. And the space field gave me an opportunity to do that. So I got to marry my engineering love, my passion for science, and just curiosity, and then just discovering this enigma or this enigmatic thing called space. The other big thing that drove or I guess, attracted me to space was that because it's so big and because it's so vast and because um, from the vantage point of space, we're just earthlings, right? We're not separated by any type of divisions, essentially. Those don't matter in space. What only matters is that we're humanity and we're one species on this planet. I thought that because of that, we had this beautiful opportunity to be united through the unified goal of space exploration. And that's something that has always felt very naive of me, but it's never left me, even at 27 years old. It's something I still think has the opportunity to unite us as a species, as opposed to just a country or a region on Earth, but as Earthlings.
United as Earthlings, that's an admirable goal. I don't think it's naive at all. I aspire to such heights. Thank you so much for sharing. Yoseline, would you like to go next?
Sure. So I think everything started like when I was a child as well. As many of us, maybe I was like dreaming of being an astronaut, and I was passionate about space and geography and maps. So also I had the opportunity I'm from Colombia originally, so I have the opportunity to be in touch with nature and with so many diversity around me. So I think it also play a role on what I decided to study at the end, or like our planet. So also together with this, I think another reference to me was like probably my mom. She's a professor in maths and physics. So always I had this idea of being someone like related with science or with maths. So yeah, I think I can say that like she was also like an inspiration for me.
Love that. I think there's just so much that we learn as children that we carry with us for our whole lives. So I appreciate you sharing that. Alina, how about you?
Yeah, so I became interested in space in high school, maybe a little bit later than the other panelists. And for me, it was at the time when I was in my last year of high school, one of the famous Canadian astronauts, Chris Hadfield, was in command of the International Space Station. And he made all these videos that became viral about what life in space is like and what's going on in space. And that kind of inspired me to look into like, okay, what's going on up there. And that's when I learned that a lot of the items that we use in everyday life in one way or another came from the space program. Just some examples, wireless headphones, some of you might be using to listen to this, laptops, GPS materials and tires. Just there's so much in our everyday life that we don't realize came from the space program. And so as someone that went into engineering, I was really looking forward to applying my problem solving skills towards finding innovative solutions and doing this innovative research in space that we can do on Earth. And I was also just fascinated that we have humans, up there in orbit. And now as we try to get back to the moon and go to Mars, I'm just really passionate about the life sciences and the space health fields and making sure that we can, keep humans healthy and productive in space.
Wow. I really enjoy that kind of pragmatic approach. Like the inspiration came from the science itself. That I admire that as a scientist adjacent person. I admire that. Michole, how about you? What inspired you to start your career in space science?
My career in space science, I would say, didn't really begin until about 2019, 2020. I've always been a sci-fi person, always liking the apocalyptic movies, never considered that I would be a player in this space, actually offer different perspectives about what space science can be and can look like, especially like on a societal person-to-person level. So back in 2020 is when Ashley, Dr. Miles, and I started Spacebox, which is an escape room experience centered in a Black reality, where we were coming up with very crazy what if ideas. Now, actually, let me not even say crazy because it's not crazy. It's very rooted in our own lived experiences from our backgrounds of what would it look like if everyone in the space station was Black? What if it looked like for everyone actually had the same music interest or had other similarities? And what would that change actually about what space looks like? So for instance, we know that our hair is very different. What does it mean for an astronaut helmet to actually be protective for Black hairstyles? Because we do have different chemical needs for our hair. So I got into space science in that space of wonder and amazement and asking the what if questions that maybe people are not necessarily thinking is possible. What does it mean to be possible? So from the Spacebox era, it really took off from there because I started Spacebox before I started my first NASA doctoral internship. And I think that also kicked off when Naia actually did the first, I would say, commercial for Spacebox. And seeing Naia's work and her being involved in NASA definitely started opening up new ideas for me as well, like what it means to be a Black woman in this space. So my first NASA opportunity was at Glenn Research Center in their STEM education space, where I was doing research about how to bring more Black and brown girls into the NASA ecosystem. And the more I sit in this space of having a mathematics background, because I am a mathematician by credentials, but I got into space science through my education concerns and outreach expertise. So it's just really shaped a special place for me to understand that space science is more than just what we would consider our hard sciences, that we are still talking about people. We're talking about the humans, the earthlings who are doing the science here. So how can I bring more of us into the space to know that everything that we are actually belongs?
I so appreciate that, Michole. Um, and again, for folks in the audience, like hearing the different insertion points that these folks found to doing work at NASA. There's not a one cookie cutter size fits all approach, but rather these all perspectives are necessary and accepted at this agency. I want to pivot a little bit to invite you to think about some challenges you faced on your journey to becoming a space scientist. Alina, I'd like to start with you. And as you share some of what these challenges might have been, I'm curious if you could also share how you overcame them.
Yeah, so I, got my interest in space in high school. Then I started my undergrad degree. And I did my undergraduate degree in Calgary in Canada. And at the time, there weren't existing opportunities in the specific kind of life sciences, space health field that I was interested in. And so for me, that was the biggest challenge. Like, how do I have this interest, how do I even begin getting involved in the research that I am interested in? And some of the strategies that I used is really like trying to create those opportunities for myself. That meant, if I had any kind of course that I took where I could choose a topic for a project, I would try to, pitch a space project or pursue a space related project. Like one of the very first projects I did had to do with bone and muscle loss in astronauts. And we got to interview one of the Canadian astronauts for that project. I also, whenever there was an opportunity for mentorship programs, I would try and go and find someone in the space industry who would be willing to be a mentor. And sort of as I got involved into more projects this way, I got to meet more people in the space industry. I got to learn more about opportunities that exist elsewhere, kind of build my own opportunities locally. And one thing led to another after that.
I appreciate that the solution for your challenges was hustle to create opportunities for yourself. That's a message I'm taking with me as we go on. Naia, same question. What were some challenges that you faced on your journey, and how have you overcame them?
So funny. I have so many I could talk about. I would say the biggest challenges that I faced were my own kind of academic failures. And it taught me a very, very interesting, or it gave me a very different perspective on failure, and that um, failure and success are not two ends of a spectrum. It's a progression. So in order to get to success, failure is a necessary thing. And it's how you respond and cope with failure is what will determine your attention to your goals. And for me, my failure has come in a few different forms. One of the ones I used to talk about the most was I failed aerodynamics in the junior year of my aerospace, my bachelor's or my undergraduate degree. And failing in the junior year when you know you're about to apply to grad school is very scary because you apply to grad school with that GPA. And so it was not a fun time at all, but I remember thinking like, okay, I could either just give up on all my goals because I'm afraid, or I'm afraid they're going to say no to me, or I could just continue to throw my hat in the ring despite not feeling qualified.
Mm,
And that's exactly what I did. I just continued to throw my hat in the ring. So I retook it the following semester, got an A, was applying to grad schools. I had a job. It was one of the busiest and scariest semesters of my life. But again, I got an A after getting a D the first time. And even when I applied to grad schools and I talked about that experience, just to explain it away, because I think a lot of people think a D or F or whatever, failing grade on your transcripts is a disqualifier. But what I've learned is that if you can explain it or talk about it in your personal statement, you never know who's going to identify with that
mm,
story, or you can show them that you have this ability to overcome, or you have this ability to um, essentially learn what you did wrong and do right, which is a great thing, and it makes you a very valuable student or researcher, etc. And so that's what I did. I've gone through more failures, and I think that the main strategy that I've learned now through those things is that you have to keep throwing yourself in the ring, recalibrate, identify what went wrong, and correct.
Wow. As an educator, I love this growth mindset that you just espoused, that failure is not the end point, but an opportunity to learn about yourself and grow. And the determination you showed as well is so impressive. Same question for Yoseline. What challenges have you faced and how did you overcome them?
Sure. So I think I can start by saying that the first challenge was like making the decision to be a scientist. Although since I was a kid, I wanted to be related with something, I mean, with science. But the thing is, like in countries like Latin American countries, it's not that simple to become a scientist. So you have to always make the decision between, okay, you're going for something related with science or something more like in the industry. So I ended up going to the industry. I work for an oil company as an engineer, as a geologist and remote sensing expert for 9 years. But all the time it was like back on my mind, this is not necessarily what you want. You want something different. So this is a challenge, to make the decision to look forward for your dreams or for what your real interests are. So, well, it was a difficult decision at that time, but I ended like, okay, I'm going to quit this and I'm going to look for a PhD position and go for what I really, really want to do. So perhaps this is just also to give the message that sometimes it's not necessarily the path to your dreams is straightforward. Sometimes you have to go through some other options first, and then you will learn some other things. Like I learned a lot from the industry as well. Some skills, I gained a lot of skills that nowadays I appreciate because it helped me as a scientist to maybe to be more productive or to deal with different situations in a different way. So yeah, I think it's pretty much the biggest challenge that I face.
That's so impressive to switch careers like that is. It sounds terrifying, but kudos to you for sticking through it, for applying lessons you learned from industry to at the academy, and congratulations again on your new position at Goddard. Seems like things are working out. Michole, same question for you. What are some challenges you faced on your journey, and how have you overcame them?
Listening to the other panelists' responses to this had me thinking even a little deeper about my journey here. Even being invited to be on this panel and seeing that question of what does it mean to be a space scientist, because it's not a label I would have necessarily ever given myself, as saying I'm a space scientist. Then listening to everyone brought to mind this quote by Carol Moseley Braun of defining myself as opposed to being defined by others is one of the biggest challenges that I face. Where when I look at the data, when I look at all the stuff that I have done throughout my life, it's not by accident that I'm sitting here on this panel. Nothing happened by chance. And I can see that same trend just throughout my life, especially professionally, where I first was exclusively only doing mathematics, and I still struggled in my college years of trying to negotiate of, I know I'm someone who loves math and does math, but as I started to get into my higher courses, and actually very similar experience to Naia about the classes not going well and starting to question myself and not feeling like I belong there anymore. And it's like, I know I love math, but I'm not being able to like see myself in these places that I see what other mathematicians are doing. And that kind of pushed me into the education space because I'm wondering, what about the classroom? Even though I am someone who loves this subject a lot and would still do it in my free time, why is it that I feel that there's not a place for me to belong when I hear everyone else is loving it the same way, but I'm alone? And essentially was in a lot of my advanced math courses. But when I got into education, it was finally seeing that social aspect and understanding it, that again, like I mentioned earlier, it always comes back to the people and socio-cultural context that really helped me see myself as a mathematician. And as I was on that journey of seeing myself professionally in that way and allowing myself to lean more into my nerdiness and geekiness and say, you really do like space a lot. You really do like talking about these meteorites and stuff a lot. I might not have the degree in that particular field, but that doesn't make me any less qualified to ask questions and be in those environments, which is where Spacewalks came out to be. Because I actually am capable of learning all of these things and I'm really curious about it. So I'm going to keep finding ways that I can validate myself and say, hey, you belong here. And pretty sure if I feel like I don't belong here, someone else is thinking the same thing. So let me keep making more spaces so other folks are validated that no matter what, if there is an interest in space, if there's an interest in aerospace or anything, you are indeed a space scientist, because it comes down to being curious. Do you want to know more? Are you willing to mess up? Are you willing to just wander and be amazed by anything? Then you're definitely a space scientist. So it's that identity aspect.
Yeah, yeah. Chills, thinking about that, about carving space for yourself, be in your own mirror, to see yourself in these spaces. I think is a lesson we can all emulate. Thank you all for sharing. I want to pivot a bit to invite you to think about the work you've done in support of NASA. And I'd love for you to share, Yoseline, we'll start with you. I'd love for you to share something that you think people might not know about working at NASA or doing science at NASA.
Sure. So, well, I think most of us relate NASA, or whenever we hear about NASA, we think of space, no? Uh, Telescopes and outer space and all these space science, which is really cool. But at NASA, we also have an Earth Science division and work on this division. So we also are interested in learning about our planet. And we are a pretty big family as well as in the Earth Science division, where we look for learning about weather, our climate variations, atmosphere, oceans, glaciers, and land surface in general. So it's a big family that is composed by engineers, by scientists, by technicians, by software developers, all of us together working on developing instruments, creating sensors, cameras, if you want to name it like this, that we put on the space, onboard satellites or the International Space Station, or even flying airplanes, performing some field campaigns also, like myself, like for instance, last week I was participating in a field campaign here in California and some other places. So we go to the field, also collect data about plants, about flowers, about soil, water quality, well, so it's very diverse, and this is something also part of NASA. I think, and I hope most of you or some of you that are participating in the Space Apps Challenge also get interested in this Earth Science division. I myself was participated in the Space Apps 4 years ago, precisely with an application for the Earth Science division on agriculture, and we won. So there is a space also for people that are interested in our planet.
Wow, amazing. Well, congratulations. I'm a bit late, but congratulations on your hackathon success. I'll ask the same question, something you think people might not know about NASA. Naia.
Sure. I think the one thing that surprised me the most is that when I became a Pathways intern, I swore in, I guess, as a federal civil servant, which I don't know if people know that, but that's part of the Pathways matriculation. But I swore in 4 days after my 19th birthday, and I thought, okay, that's pretty young to be working at NASA, and I was very excited about it. Then I came across other folks that have been working at NASA for a very long time, but were able to start as early like as 16. So the Pathways program is very, one, it's an excellent opportunity just to have a streamlined pathway into federal civil service. And you can start obviously as early as I did, or sometimes earlier, depending on where you are and what's available, of course. And then, of course, that sets the stage for very long careers, which is very typical for people at NASA. It's very unlikely that people are there for a short time. And that was a beautiful thing for me, because obviously that shows that there's an excellent workforce culture there. And so I would just say, if you are interested in NASA, I think Pathways is one of the best opportunities that you could take. You can do it while you're in school. I've done it again since undergrad, and they allowed me to continue in the program through grad school. And I intend to convert sometime this year. And so, yes, I think the biggest thing that surprised me was that you could start as early as 16.
I did not know that either. But I think it's such a great opportunity for folks who are engaged and interested in doing science. As a bit of a plug, I think the last 3 or 4 years running, I think NASA has had the greatest job satisfaction of any agency in the federal government. So they're doing something right. Alina, same question. What's something you think people might not know about working at NASA?
Yeah, maybe one thing is that you don't necessarily need a technical background to work at NASA or be involved in space sciences. You know, there's a need for communicators to actually uh, communicate the research and the nitty-gritty details of what we do to people. You know, there's fields like space policy where, you know, lawyers come in. Um, and similarly, you know, thinking about my team that I work with, it's not just like a single background or, you know, you don't necessarily have to have a PhD or be a scientist. We work with engineers, we work with doctors. Like it really takes a team of diverse backgrounds to put a lot of these projects together. And maybe the last thing is, you know, someone coming from Canada, um, uh, just something that I want to point out is that there are certain projects and certain programs that allow people from outside of the US to come and work with NASA. For example, the NASA postdoctoral program, there's some projects, not all of them, but there's a good number of projects that are open to people from outside of the US. So I think that's kind of a big question that a lot of people ask. And there are ways for students and young professionals to be involved.
That's certainly a question that's come up a lot over the course of these couple of days, is folks from all over the world wanting to know how they can get involved at NASA. So definitely gratifying to hear that there are pathways, perhaps not through the Pathways program itself, no pun intended, but there are opportunities for folks from all over the world to work at NASA. Michole, same question. Something you think people might not know about working at NASA?
Very aligned with Alina's answer, honestly, is that there are a lot of other non-technical ways to get involved with NASA. I said my first internship was through the Office of STEM Engagement, which up until I found that role, didn't know that NASA had an entire STEM education and engagement department throughout the entire industry. So being in that space is learning more about all these, not just former educators or there are so many people within NASA who used to teach in K through 12 schools or teach on the college level, as well as people who have worked on actual missions, who have decided that they want to find more ways to get just children and adults and other people in the world just knowing about what's happening at NASA and making that entryway. So there's so much space for really anyone to be a part of NASA, even
Sure.
if you feel like astrophysics isn't your thing or any other technical science. So that for sure. And I also wanted to shout out the team that I'm currently like doing research about. It's NASA's Science Activation Team Portfolio. So this is a group of 43 different organizations throughout NASA across the country that are doing outreach events in different populations, different areas, like NASA's Astronomy Picture of the Day. That's an entire organization that's funded by NASA who puts out a picture of different galactical images across our universe. And there's a whole role for that. If you're into photography, there is a place for you here. There's a whole nother group of people at Heliophysics at Goddard where they do some work with indigenous communities in Alaska. And they've been working on a coloring book that is bringing together indigenous ways of knowing the universe along with Western ways of knowing the universe, which is what we'll say is NASA's approach is the Western way to understand our universe, and putting coloring books together to get people involved. And there are beautiful, beautiful indigenous art in there. So there's all these types of projects that are happening that are at the in-between of like the humanities and science that just gives more entryways into the space world.
Yeah, I love that. It really is aligned with one of the panels we had yesterday, talked about exactly that. Dr. Merle Ballard from the University of Calgary talked about braiding Western and Indigenous ways of knowing together to see what else we can learn and what opportunities there are to get communities involved in doing sustainability work. So I really appreciate you highlighting that. Definitely aligned with some other things we've heard over the course of the summit. For my next trick, Michole, I'll come back to you actually and ask how you see the field of space science evolving over the next decade, and what opportunities do you think will arise?
Yeah, so over the next decade, just in my sphere of space science, it's thinking about what it means to have the diversity of minds and creativity working on all these NASA missions and projects that I just want to make sure that we remain in a place in the next decade where we are accepting all the possibilities of the minds that can work on these projects, what we all bring to the table in trying to understand our universe. Because the more that we are shutting out certain communities or feeling like all the genders, all the race, all the culture, all the religious backgrounds that we are, if we're shunning and silencing those out, we're limiting on how much we can actually learn about this world. And when we think about the privatization of space as well, when we have all these millionaire, billionaire companies or people funding these different trips and funding to get us on Mars, we're also going to bring those same ideologies to these new planets. If we're saying that we don't want to talk about diversity, we're saying that we don't want to acknowledge different ways of living, we're also saying when we do terraform this next planet, those other ways of living are also not welcome there. We're not creating, so like an entendre to keep saying space in this sense, but we're not making space for anyone within the larger space here. So in this next decade of just space science, it's this hope and desire for us to not limit ourselves and what it means to contribute to this world, that it really is for everyone. And we need to have that understood because history repeats itself over and over again. We've seen it. And there's also the point of, I know there is that struggle in wanting to make that space for some when it comes to diversity. I kind of sit at that point of where I don't feel anyone is ever debating whether an atom exists. That's not the problem here. The issues are coming from people to people and wanting to be seen, wanting to be understood. It's not the science that's being debated. It's the people who are doing the science, that we are more than just ones and zeros, that we have full lives.
Right. Bars, as they say. Same question for you, Yoseline. How do you see your field developing or evolving over the next decade, and what opportunities do you think will arise?
Yeah, well, I see something happening right now, which is related. I mean, I'm working on remote sensing, I said before, but specifically, I'm working on something that is called hyperspectral or imaging spectroscopy, which is kind of sensor that help us to see what we are, I mean, to see as humans what we are not able to see, because we are collecting so many information across the electromagnetic spectrum that allow us to see, like the, let's say, like the fingerprint of each and every material on our surface. So with these cameras, we're able to see through the infrared, through the shortwave infrared, long wave infrared. So we are developing these sensors and we're advancing these technologies so much that I think we have now the opposite problem, that we have too much data and we have to advance the data analysis. We have to advance the computational capacity to manage and to deal with all these data. So I see the opportunities there, actually, like looking for new models, new data analysts able to disentangle it, to understand the meaning of these images that we capture from space. So yeah, I think that's also part of the future.
I absolutely agree. I'm just beginning to learn about this technology actually over the last few days, and I think that does indeed have a lot of potential. Thank you for sharing. Naia, how about you? Where do you see your field evolving? It sounds like you're on the bleeding edge of technology, so I'm really curious to hear how you think the space is going to evolve over the next decade and what opportunities will arise.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. I totally, fully agree with both my former panelists, what they said. Michole in particular, Dr. Washington, rather, excuse me, I always get that right. You talking about the privatization and the commercialization of space has been really kind of forefront on my mind lately, because I have personal relationships with people that are flying on Blue Origin rockets. And that just continues to grow. Like, people that I personally know are able to fly, and that's becoming very, I would say, widespread currently. And I think that's really interesting and going to open up all kinds of opportunities. With my technology in particular, so space electric propulsion, one of the primary goals in my field right now is to essentially scale up our electric rockets to very high power. And with very high power rockets, we're able to go much further distances. So I really do see us not just looking to go to Mars or sending spacecraft or sensors or maybe even people to Mars, but far beyond that as well. I believe that that's definitely on the horizon. I believe that is what NASA is preparing for, especially as a lot of these commercial companies come up and their capabilities increase. The need for NASA to stay in the LEO or low Earth orbit kind of domain is becoming less and less necessary. And it's exciting that, we're likely going to see a big push outward from the moon and beyond. And so I'm a big fan of deep space exploration. I'm very excited to see what's out there. I do believe the technology that I work with, electric propulsion, will enable that. If you're not familiar with it, it essentially is a rocket that uses electricity to create thrust. And because it does that in the ways that it does that makes it extremely efficient. And so it is one of the things that will, in my belief, will definitely take us to Mars and beyond. And so I think that's approaching, or that's coming. The next frontier of space exploration is pretty much at our feet. So it's a very exciting time.
Wow. Jorge in the chat says, please develop that propulsion quickly. He's in the hunt to build some spacecraft with that. So Jorge, I'll let you follow up with Naia to make sure that fire stays lit. Alina, I want to ask you the same thing. What's on the horizon for you in the next decade in your field, and what opportunities do you think will arise?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, there will be a lot of changes to microgravity sciences in low Earth orbit. As you know, the International Space Station is set to retire in 5 years. And, we've talked about the commercial providers. I think there's a lot more also suborbital flights that are happening. I think right now it's still hard to say exactly what it's going to look like logistically with all the commercial space stations and the suborbital flights. But I hope that, because we have more providers, more flights, and especially the suborbital flights that are very short, perhaps it will create more opportunities for scientists to send their experiments up microgravity. And I think it could make it more accessible for researchers themselves to go and operate their experiments versus relying on kind of astronauts and dividing astronaut time between a lot of many experiments. And when it comes to deep space exploration, I am excited for us to go back to the moon, and I think that will increase the science and the technology demonstrations that we'll do on the moon to pave the way for us to go to Mars.
So much possibility. It boggles the mind. I want to pivot us to some Q&A from the chat, which has been really active. As I pass the ball here to Maura to surface some of those questions, I just want to thank you all again for joining us. Maura.
Thanks, Parker. So yeah, if you haven't had a chance, the chat and the Q&A have been really active. And I think a question that you all have answered in one way or another, but if you could give advice to anyone that's interested in pursuing a career in space science, whether they are just starting off in their career or they're hoping to maybe pivot into that, what would you tell them? Anyone can start. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to offer that you can always make your own crevice in space science. Like I mentioned, I didn't get into it until I started my first company, which was Spacebox, and we were creating games, educational escape rooms, educational games that's based in space science and other like cultural things that we wanted to talk about. And doing that work right there is what made me extremely qualified to apply for my first NASA internship. So you can always make your own space, find that niche area, and honestly, Space App. Doing this Space App challenge is exactly that, where you're creating something that's making room for how you see the world, how you see our universe, and want to make a difference. So make the space for yourself.
Maybe I can jump in next. One piece of advice that I have is if you see an opportunity that is aligned with your interests, go ahead and apply for it. I would like to say that I think for every opportunity that I was successful at, there was probably several that I was not successful at. And some of the best opportunities that I've had, like flying on a parabolic flight, at the time that I applied, I thought there's no way. And it's, you know, but you got to try. You have to try. That's the only way you know if you get it or not. And if you try and you know, don't get in, try to learn like why, okay, I'm missing this piece, like let's go and get this piece of experience or whatever that might be, apply again. And as you know, also reach out to people in the field and ask them how they got into their positions, and, you know, try to kind of take those steps that you need to take to get where you need to go. And my last kind of piece of advice is don't underestimate, you know, volunteer opportunities and participating in events like Space Apps. I think it's definitely a way to get this experience, and just by being here, you're already getting relevant experience.
I can go now. Piggybacking off of what you just said, that's exactly what I'd want to say, but I want to just hone in on the fact that networking has changed my life. And networking is exactly why I have had all the opportunities I've had, which have spanned from things inside my field, outside of my field, completely unrelated to my field. And it's because people knew my name and people knew what I could offer, and they knew the value that I could add. And they would either suggest me or recommend that I apply for different things. And then I had to take that exact same advice. I had to apply regardless of what whether or not I felt qualified. And so yes, and networking doesn't have to look like, okay, I saw you at a conference and we exchange information. The social media landscape is ever evolving, and funny enough, was one of the major ways I met a lot of different people in my field or tangentially related or just in the space field in general over the last few years, which has been such a treat. And so please network, please share your story too. You never know who's watching or listening. And just continue to put your name out there. Don't be afraid to cold email, maybe cold call. I don't know, it's a little bit too grown for me. But just definitely put yourself out there.
Yeah, well, all of you have said what I was thinking about. Like, yeah, I totally agree with all of you on this. But I would like to add maybe a couple of things. Like, yeah, from one side, yeah, opportunities like Space App or these hackathons help a lot. As I told you before, from my own experience, when I was doing my PhD, finishing with my PhD, I participated on Space Apps. It was a great opportunity to meet people, networking, with a topic that it wasn't necessarily the topic that I was researching. It was mostly about agriculture, and within my team, we have like a multidisciplinary team, and this is also important. Don't think that only, I mean, it's important to expand your networking, not only people within your same field, but maybe someone that works on communications or that works on economics or that works on social issues. I mean, all these help a lot. And you never know when through these other cross-field collaborations you ended like working on space or earth sciences. And as well, I totally agree with you, Naia, on like social network, particularly when I got my position as PhD. For my PhD, I learned about that position on Facebook. And as for the postdoctoral position here at Goddard, I learned about this on Twitter, well, former Twitter. So yeah, I mean, just keep on connecting with people through social networks. Yep.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think those are great answers and great place for people to start when they're exploring opportunities in space science and earth science. One final question, and then we're going to close out. You all have mentioned networking, you've mentioned volunteer opportunities as being, channels to find out more about what might exist in interest areas that you have. Do you have any sort of career resources, job boards in both like government, commercial, the commercial space industry that you might be willing to share with this group? If nothing comes to mind immediately, it's all good. We can share out anything too with this group afterwards. I just wanted to give them any resources that you can think of that come to mind. Beyond, I know you've shared a lot of them already.
I have a couple of organizations that maybe people would be interested in. For students out there, there is something called Students for the Exploration and Development of Space, and the acronym is SEDS. And it's a nonprofit that exists in many different countries with the mission of kind of creating opportunities for students to get involved in the space industry. And so I think it's a good example because many countries have their own chapters. For any Canadians on the call, the Canadian one is very active. And that's where I've volunteered for many years. And they also organize projects for students. And I know there's chapters in many different countries around the world. The other organization is Space Generation Advisory Council. It's also for students and young professionals. I think those are, again, international organizations that can give you an opportunity to get involved in space projects, to volunteer, and also, the networking that we talk about, you can get to meet people in the space industry internationally through these organizations.
That's great.
I want to pull out, again, the NASA Science Activation Teams. So you can Google that. I could drop the link as well in the chat. But all these organizations across the United States that are doing different type of creative NASA activities, they're always looking for different types of subject matter experts, and subject matter experts includes early career scientists, which also includes graduate students. You are considered a subject matter expert and you're an early career scientist still. We're always looking for more of you all to contribute to these projects all the time. One that I have next to me right now, I don't know if I'll be able to show it on the camera. There's a group that makes comic books for NASA. Oh, we can't really see it. But this one's about the first women who went to space. They also have them in Spanish editions as well, all the comics. So there are different groups who are directly connected to NASA doing a lot of creative projects in the space industry. So you can go to science activation teams, and just networking with those people alone, you can find a lot of opportunities.
That's great. Thank you so much for that. I know that this group will definitely be looking into those resources. I'm going to pass it back to Parker. Thank you so much to the panelists. He's going to close us out today.
Yeah, I want to start that same place. Thank you so much, panelists. I've learned so much. I know that our audience is chomping at the bit, so to speak, to get involved with NASA space and trying to find ways to expand their educational and their careers. So kudos to you for making the time to share with us today. We're so grateful. For folks on the call today, we're about to take a short break, only 15 minutes. Up next, you get to choose where you go. You can either stay in this place for a Globe workshop starting at 3:15, where we'll get a hands-on opportunity to practice using the Global Observer app, led by Dr. Becky Boger, or you can join another connection session and zero gravity chat at 3:15, where we'll connect with other participants, share project ideas, or go deeper into a topic of your choosing. In the chat, you'll see the link for that zero gravity chat, which is going to be on a different link. Again, if you want to join the zero gravity chat, please click on the meeting link that's being added to the chat right now. If you want to stay and hang out for the Globe workshop, you're going to stay on this line. With that said, we have a quick break for you to get refreshed, stand up, stretch, etc. We'll begin with the Globe workshop at 15 past the hour. Again, the zero gravity chats will be open at the same time on the link in your chat. Thanks again. Before you go, please don't forget to answer the poll question that's popped up in your WebEx screen. We're really grateful for all the suggestions and data that you're able to give us. For now, ta-ta, we'll see you in about 15 minutes. Thank you.